going on there. Then I'll talk a little bit about Silicon Valley specifically, and then give you some thoughts and we can take questions. Okay? So, SRI, Stanford Research Institute. Okay, we were founded by Stanford University back in 1946. So this year, or last year, we were 70 years old. We have about 2,000 employees, and every year we do about $500 million in research and development. Most of that for the U.S. government, but we have worked for the Mexican government, for many other governments, and for private companies around the world, doing research. But we are a nonprofit. We don't try and take things that we invent, sell them to customers, and make money. Not our business. We invent things, we will license it to somebody, they can build products and sell it to customers, but we're doing the research. Okay? And over the last, our mission in all of that is basically we are trying to invent things that will change the world. My job, the job of the 2,000 people here and elsewhere at SRI, is to invent technologies that will change the world, that will make you and your children safer, healthier, and more productive. Okay? That's fun. That's part of why I work here, is we get to think of crazy ideas and try and make them real. Over the last 70 years, to give you some ideas of things that we have invented in the past, if you go to the lobby over there, you can see a replica of the original computer mouse. That was invented here 40 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. If any of you use this thing called the Internet, before the Internet was ARPANET. The first packet on ARPANET was from UCLA to SRI. And there's a plaque, again, in the lobby that commemorates that. If any of you use Siri on the iPhone, that was a company that spun out of SRI. If any of you watch HD television, we set the standard for HD television. And lots of other things. So we've invented a lot of cool things in the past. That doesn't matter anymore. What matters is the future. And so today, we are doing research in many, many, many different areas. And I'll try and give you an overview here. To start with, robots. We believe robots are going to change the world. And I'll spend a good chunk of time today talking about some of those examples. You're all at Stanford. I don't know if you have had a chance to go and see the dish or hike up around it. If you do, it's a wonderful hike, about 4 miles. Get some exercise. It's very nice. We built that satellite dish 50 years ago. We run it today. It happens to be one of the satellites that helps calibrate all the GPS signals for the United States and Mexico. So if you're driving in your car and using your GPS signal, we're responsible for making sure you're on the right road. Okay? That's part of our job. If any of you saw the movie Gravity, yes? You know all the space junk flying around the globe, right? We run a series of satellites around the world that track all the space garbage, all the space debris flying around the world, and our job for NASA is to make sure that movie never comes true. Okay? So that's another thing we do in space. We do a lot of work with sensing and devices. We're trying to build sensors that can detect things like Zika virus, Ebola virus, radiation leaks, oil and gas leaks in a pipeline in the Gulf of Mexico. We build lots of sensors and very sensitive devices to try and do that sort of thing. We have a big group working on health and biomedical sciences. So cancer, obvious focus. We also, for the U.S. government, do a lot of work with tropical diseases. So don't be scared, but about 300 meters over there, there's Ebola virus, there's Zika virus. We won't infect you, but we research those things. But also, kind of differently, we're doing a lot of work focused on the diseases and problems of aging. You all are young, the beginning of your lives. It's a wonderful time. I'm an old guy, okay? My hearing's not so good, my eyesight's not so good, my knee is not so good, I'm weighing too much. But as we get older, the most important thing is our memory starts to go, and we don't think as well. And there are a lot of problems and challenges with people as they get older. And we're doing a lot of research in trying to figure out how to help people as we get older. Obviously, we do a lot of work with information and computing sciences. We're in Silicon Valley, not hardware. This is all software. We do a lot of work in security. So, for instance, we run the Bot Hunter network for the U.S. government. So we're always, all the time, looking for the bad guys, whether they're in Russia, in China, in North Korea, and we're trying to shut them down. Okay? We do a lot of work with encryption. But also, really importantly here, I'll talk about artificial intelligence in a minute. The other thing we're doing a lot of work on is what I'll call generically user interfaces. As computers go from being this size to being this size, you're not going to have a keyboard anymore. You're not going to have big screens. And so the way we interface to computers over the next 10 years is going to change dramatically. Question?
Are you also doing research on non-display computers?
Yes. Yes. And so we do a lot of work in how will we interface to computers over the next 10 to 20 years. And one of the computers that we think all of you will use in the next 5 to 10 years is self-driving cars. We're doing a lot of work in autonomous vehicles of different sorts. There's another group focused on education and learning. And here, I know in the United States, and I believe in Mexico as well, that many of our young people, of our high school students, do not learn algebra. Okay? Without algebra, you will never do chemistry, you will never do physics, you will never do advanced science. You end up making empanadas or turning hamburgers at McDonald's, right? A bad job. That's a problem. And so we need to use technology to help our young people learn math and science better. And so there's a big group here focused on that. There's a big group focused on chemistry and materials, nanoparticles, membranes for water filtration, that sort of thing. But also, very importantly here, carbon capture. We're trying to slow down global warming. I don't think we can stop it, but if we can slow it down, that would be good. And then lastly, my group, which focuses on how innovation, entrepreneurship, drives economies moving forward. Okay? So that gives you a sense of the areas that SRI does research in. All right? Now, as we do that, of course, as I said earlier, our biggest client is the U.S. government, but we do work for many big companies as well. And these are just some examples of different kinds of companies. I think you will recognize many of the logos up there. At the same time, part of our mission is every year the U.S. government gives us roughly $400 of our $500 million in research. And we have the rights, by law here in the United States, to commercialize that research. And so we take $400 or $500 million of R&D. Every year, our scientists write about 500 patent disclosures a year, saying, we've invented something, we think it's worth patenting. Okay? Our lawyers read those. They don't always agree. About 200 times a year, we file a patent application. A year and a half later, we typically get about 100 patents.